This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, just like every other city, we have our quirks and our unwritten rules. Like, why is someone turning left instead of yielding to me at the green light? And what's up with that rickety old chair sitting in front of my neighbor's house? I'm with the rest of the CityCast team to talk through our essential rules for surviving and thriving in Pittsburgh. And stick around to the end. We've got a sponsored conversation with the Pittsburgh Opera about a few of their upcoming shows. It's Wednesday, March 12th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. I'm here with the whole CityCast Pittsburgh team, executive producer Mallory Falk.
Hello.
Producer Sophia Lowe.
Hey, Megan.
And newsletter editor Francesca DeBecco.
Hi, everybody.
So here at CityCast Pittsburgh, we do all kinds of things. What you need to know, what's good to eat.
Oh, absolutely. I love talking about what's good to eat, as well as
Yes.
cool history tidbits, nostalgia, lots and lots of events and tips for the ways to experience the city.
Yeah, so today we're going to touch on what you need to know to live here in Pittsburgh. Our episode is all about the essential things you've got to have down to really thrive here.
And maybe not annoy your neighbors. I don't know.
Definitely. And we have a good mix on our team here. You know, I'm born and raised Pittsburgh. I've never left.
Francesca's our lifer. Mallory's our boomerang.
Yep, I did the thing, left for school, was gone a long time, and then found myself back here.
Sophia is brand new to town.
2 years in.
Yeah,
so,
2 years.
Brand new for Pittsburgh.
For Pittsburgh, yes.
Pittsburgh, you can be here 50 years and you're still a newcomer.
Honestly. And then I've been here for 12 years, but I've now married a local and made one. So I like to call myself a Pittsburgher.
You are officially adopted, Megan. You are a Pittsburgher. So first up, your first essential rule is knowing your neighborhoods. We've got 90 official neighborhoods, each with their own character. And, geography really plays a role in this, creating those distinct pockets.
Lots of hills and rivers. Yeah.
Definitely. But even within those 90 neighborhoods, there's unofficial ones like the 4 Mile Run in Greenfield or Mexican War Streets in the central north side. And then there's Regent Square, which I think people think is a little bit bigger than it actually is. This neighborhood, it intersects where different communities meet. So Wilkinsburg, Edgewood, and Swissville all come together in the Regent Square area.
Until we were prepping for this episode, I actually had no idea that the Mexican War Streets was not considered an official neighborhood.
Nope.
This is I didn't realize that there were these places that are just really commonly known aren't on the official list.
Yeah.
I mean, Mexican War Streets has so many flags that say Mexican War Streets when you're walking around. I feel like that one is easy to think it's official.
And that's why you should know them.
Well, and I think that's why the vigilante ones are also important to know, like the War Streets. The North Side, I think, is in particularly good at doing this. Where one part of town will declare that they are now, in fact, a part of a different neighborhood. I'm looking at Perry South mostly for this one because they put up that beautiful mosaic mural declaring themselves Perry Hilltop, but you are actually Perry South.
Well, and all the reporting I always see on the neighborhood says, Perry South, also known as Perry Hilltop. So it's kind of unofficially official that it's got both names.
And then Perry North, which is Observatory Hill. It's, multiple names. It's really good to familiarize yourself with these.
And one really great way to do that is with our very own neighborhood guides. Francesca puts these in the newsletter. Before I joined the team, I actually really relied on these guides to sort of get to know Pittsburgh. I was so excited the first time I recognized a mural in my own neighborhood. I was like, yes, I've got it.
I also think they're helpful if you've lived here your whole life, because I think Pittsburghers can be a little like insular and stick to their own neighborhoods and see things like a giant hill or a bridge as a barrier to getting out and exploring. So for me personally, like I've grown up here, but your neighborhood guides have really encouraged me to get out and spend time in some of those spots I haven't spent a lot of time.
Well, and they also encourage all of us to like think deeply about a neighborhood anytime we visit one, because we're like, oh, this would be good for a guide. We got to send it to Francesca.
Oh, well, I really appreciate that. I work really hard in them, and I'm just a big believer in being a tourist in your own town. And so I hope you find, joy through that and get to know our neighborhoods.
And if you have one that we have not hit yet, or we missed your favorite gem in your neighborhood that we have been to, you can always hit us up. We're Pittsburgh at citycast.fm.
So the second rule.
Respect the parking chair. Sophia, I'm curious if you had ever heard of this before you came here.
Yeah, I was familiar with a parking chair because they're like pretty big in Chicago.
That's
too.
right.
Yeah.
The Midwest
the other city
does a parking
this.
chair well.
Yeah. But I think Pittsburgh like reps it a lot harder than Chicago does.
Yeah. Does Chicago have parking chair merch?
Yeah, I have parking chair stickers and stuff. I don't think this was as big in Chicago.
It's our identity.
And in case you are new here and you're wondering what the heck this is, maybe you've noticed a chair just like sitting next to the sidewalk in the street. The way that you can reserve your parking space here in Pittsburgh is to put a chair down on that spot, and everyone kind of observes, like if there is a chair there, I am not going to parallel park here. Someone else has laid claim to this.
Most people do.
Yeah. I mean, I also think it depends on the season. Like in the middle of summer on a busy weekend, like say there's a festival in Lawrenceville. I'm sorry, that is not the best for the parking chair.
I should say when I say everyone respects it, that's like the idea behind it. But that's not how it plays out in reality.
But if you dug yourself out of the snow.
If you shoveled your own snow and put your chair out, yes, that is sacred. Nobody should disturb that ever.
Yep. And it doesn't have to be a chair either. It can be a variety of things.
Traffic cones, little tables. I've seen toys, like just big towers that are like from like discount stores.
I really love seeing like a variety of chairs too. Like it could be a fold out chair or like your literal dining room chair, which I don't know why you would put grandma's chair out there.
Well, it's also risky if you see, sometimes I see these like beautiful antique chairs out there and I'm like, but someone's going to think this is like a curb sale and just nab it. And then you're going to lose a family heirloom.
Not in Pittsburgh. I feel like everybody knows like to at least pause and try to check.
If it's on the sidewalk, it's up for grabs. If it's in the parking spot, that's your parking chair.
I feel like people are also pretty good when there's furniture to put out like a sign that says free on it too.
That's true.
I'll move on to our third rule, one of my favorites. Get and use a library card. Our library system is incredible. I got mine literally the same week I moved here.
Very smart.
Yep.
And, since we have these branches.
A ton of library branches here in the city and the region.
Yeah, the whole county, so many. There's a really good opportunity for interlibrary loans. Like basically any book I've wanted, been in the system, been able to get it.
One time I have stumped them. The audiobooks too, though, they do a great job of sourcing. Some you have to wait for. Some are like those that you can click into and listen to right away.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a good point that there's just so many branches, because you might think get a library card, like duh, do that any new place you move. But there's just a real world of possibilities here, including not just books. There are all kinds of incredible things you can get with a library card. My favorite to reference is always this library in Whitehall that has an incredible collection of different like shapes of baking pans. So any kind of themed birthday cake you might want to make, you can get like a Dora the Explorer themed pan and check that out from that library.
Yeah, and tools, and you can look into their like ancestry services. So there's a lot that you can get.
Yeah, they can help you
card.
digitize like old family videos and things like that.
Yep. So check our website. We have a whole list of these at pittsburgh.citycast.fm. We really have a rich literary scene here, like period. So besides our libraries, definitely check out our indie bookstores. There's White Whale, City of Asylum, Stories Like Me. We could go on and on. Again, another thing up on our website. So go find yourself a book.
Next up, a rule for our drivers. Don't honk in the tunnels. I'm going to be honest, this one does not offend me personally. I think sometimes you do need to let someone know that they're being a jag-off, and a tunnel is just another opportunity for that. But I recognize that I am in the minority.
Just like all the echoes that come from a honk in the tunnel, it's too disorienting.
I don't know. I kind of love it. It like makes me feel alive.
So Megan's going at night, running through the tunnels and honking.
I've never honked in a tunnel, but I reserve the right to potentially do it someday.
Well, I think this kind of comes from like there's other cities that do it for like like good luck almost. Like it's like a tradition for them
To honk in a
tunnels.
tunnel?
Yeah, like there's other cities that do that. Not here, but I think that maybe that's like kind of why there's the rule, is because other places they do it on purpose. I don't know. But yeah, it's good to not have that noise pollution for sure.
Well, and I mean, of course, as we're talking about different traffic rules you need to know, obviously the Pittsburgh left is very important to understand. So this is when the light turns green, the driver who has the right of way can like pause for a minute and let someone making a left turn like go ahead and make that left turn first. There's a lot of debate about whether you give or take a Pittsburgh left. Like sometimes I'm not even trying to give it, but someone just goes ahead and takes their left and I gotta stop for them.
I think it's the perfect litmus test, like personality test for people in Pittsburgh. Do you make it or do you take it?
And this one's definitely very important for newbies because, you know, I grew up here, like we said. I brought my partner here who is from New Mexico, very different set of driving rules there. And I remember he came home after we'd been living here a few weeks like, I have gotten into so many near collisions. I don't understand what is happening on the road. Why are people jumping these traffic lights? And I realized I had not briefed him on this very important essential rule.
Well, if you want to know more about driving in Pittsburgh, we also did an essential rules to driving here. So more about the Pittsburgh left and all kinds of stuff. This was actually with my partner, Jacob. I don't drive. He does a lot of it, driving me around. He also does rideshare on the side. So lots of tips there.
Yes. And rule number 5, you gotta prepare for our weather. Gray all day. We are ranked the 4th gloomiest city in the U.S. as of 2023. I can't imagine that's changed much. But we had 203 cloudy days per that year. That's so bleak, guys.
It is funny. I have a 15-month-old and, you know, now I've been teaching her colors and I feel like I'm gaslighting her whenever I'm like, sky, blue, look at the blue sky, because it's never actually blue.
Same, Mallory, my toddler, like keeps squinting into the sun and just being like, that was sad. And
oh, man. I've seen stats of up to 306 cloudy days a year, which just feels wrong. Like, I know we're cloudy, but like more than 300?
I think more than 200 is probably our average, but I bet there have been years where we've had more than 300. That seems right.
And I don't remember the exact science behind it, but I know it's something to do with kind of our topography that plays into how cloudy we are.
All of that to say, it's really important if you or someone you love is coming from a very sunny city or a very sunny state, you might need to take some vitamin D supplements.
Oh, not might. Do it. Like, I depend on it. It gets me through seasonal depression for sure.
I mean, we are not medical experts, so definitely check with your doctor. But you could also consider a light therapy lamp. I was briefly team tanning bed, but I have seen the error of my ways. I know I came from the South. Look, I learned.
And if you don't have a light therapy lamp and you want to give it a try before you invest, that is something you can get with that library card through, you know, the Library of Things. So another incentive for you to get that card.
There you go.
Today's show is supported by the Frick Pittsburgh Museum and Gardens and their newest exhibition, Kara Walker, Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War Annotated. The CityCast crew just checked it out. It's so vivid. There are 15 panels from artist Kara Walker. If you're not familiar with her work, in this series, she places black silhouettes on top of old Harper's Weekly engravings. It's easy to forget now, but back in the day, illustrations like these were the main way a lot of people interpreted what it meant to be at war. There is a lot of patriotism and not a lot of the many free and enslaved black men and women who lived and fought and died during this war too. Also, the prints are paired with other Harper's Weekly illustrations, so you truly get a sense of how these stories were being told at the time. And because it's the Frick, a small bonus, they actually had the original bound copies of these Harper's Weekly illustrations. Like they were just in the house, handy, ready to go, and perfect for a show like Kara Walker's. The whole experience is just such a striking and visual reminder of what you often don't see in depictions of things like the Civil War. We highly recommend it. Get your tickets to Kara Walker, Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War Annotated, now through May 25th. And learn more at thefrickpittsburgh.org. CityCast Pittsburgh is brought to you today by Kesem. An estimated 5 million children are coping right now with a parent's cancer diagnosis. You know, being a kid is hard enough without extra anxiety or feelings of isolation or hopelessness that can come from really heavy stuff and just trying to process their caregiver's medical treatment. That's why Kesem is trying to support these kids with fun, creative, free programs and a summer camp that help uplift them no matter what comes next. And Kesem needs you to help them make the magic. Make the Magic is Kesem's annual fundraising gala where they bring local folks together for an evening of storytelling and performance, and most importantly, the chance to make a real difference for Pittsburgh kids. There are 2 opportunities for Make the Magic coming up. Kesem at the University of Pittsburgh is celebrating March 21st at Pitt's University Club, and Kesem at Carnegie Mellon University is throwing their gala the very next day, March 22nd, at the Convention Center downtown. Pick your team, Pitt or CMU, or hey, go to both. Get your tickets now at donate.kesem.org/PittsburghMTM25 or donate.kesem.org/CMUMTM25. Again, that's Kesem, Kesem, and be part of something truly magical. Make the magic, change a life. Our next essential rule for living in Pittsburgh, number 6, protect our parks and rivers.
Yeah, we have a lot of really great city and county parks. We drop all sorts of fun-looking events that are park run in our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter all the time.
Oh, yeah. There are like full moon hikes, mushroom gathering, bird watching. There's so much fun stuff to do in our parks.
But we do need to really take care of these spaces too. So most important, if you ever do anything in outdoor spaces, you have seen this before, leave no trace, AKA clean up after yourself. Do not litter. And if you see something and you can like safely and reasonably dispose of it, then pick it up and like take care of it yourself.
Yep. And if you want to go even further, you can get involved with like official cleanups and different ways to beautify our outdoor spaces. You can plant trees with Tree Pittsburgh, clean our waterways with Three Rivers Waterkeeper. You can pick up litter with Allegheny Cleanways, learn how to divert waste from landfills with the Pennsylvania Resources Council, or build community gardens with Grow Pittsburgh. There's so much you can do to get out there.
Groups, yeah.
Yeah, a special shout out too to the Explorers Club of Pittsburgh. They do all kinds of like outdoor programming, but one of my favorite events is every spring when they rappel off of Mount Washington.
Oh, yeah.
To pick up all the trash that people dump down the hillside. It is a blast to watch, and you can also help even if you aren't a climber or don't have any of that mountaineering experience.
Okay, I love this idea in theory, but I feel like I would really need to focus all of my attention on the actual act of rappelling. Trying to like multitask at the same time sounds scary.
Oh no, these people really dig it. It's a lot of rope work. They love it. But if you are not doing that, you can stay up at the top and just help like catalog everything and dispose of it properly.
Okay, that's more my speed.
Okay, that is new to me. I am very excited to see it next time it comes up.
Okay, so on to the next rule. Learn some Pittsburghese, not necessarily to say it yourself. Like, I actually grew up with a grandma who spoke perfect Pittsburghese, and I have not, like, there's something about it I'm not able to replicate, and I don't try because I don't want to embarrass myself. But it is good to know, like, some of the Pittsburgh words you're going to hear out and about because we do have our own dialect.
Yeah, I definitely grew up in a Pittsburgh house. In my later years, have reclaimed yins. I think growing up, like going to school, a lot of my classmates didn't talk like how my parents did at home. And so I kind of filtered it. But now as an adult, I'm like, that's the coolest gender neutral pronoun. I love that.
Yeah.
And I do still say things a lot, like Pittsburghese things, like, and I've taught it to my partner who's not from here. So on the weekends or whenever we're renting up the house and
Gandantan.
I don't know if it sounds quite like that.
Well, that's you heard why I don't use it.
We're getting ready to plant our spring flowers. So, there's some things that I just can't avoid. And when I'm around my parents, it definitely comes out.
I mean, my favorite one that I think I adopted, honestly, probably within at least a few months of living here is dropping to be verbs. It's just, I hated it at first. The grammarian in my heart was like so offended by it. But then I realized the efficiency to not needing to add a be verb is so great. Like Jens car need washed. Like it's just so much more fun.
I really love the word nebby. Yes. Because I love gossip. And I feel like nebby softens it a little bit. Like it maybe gives it like a little more personality, nebby neighbor, that kind of thing.
It's something
or
that's
being a neb nose.
Yeah. Being nebby is like a type of a Pittsburgh archetype to aspire to as opposed to something you need to like keep in check.
I mean, I think we all personally identify with that too on this team. Like we all have matching mugs that say Nebby from Love Pittsburgh. And we all put it in our profiles too. We are professionally Nebby.
We sure are. Yes, we really claim it. And another defining trait for Pittsburghers is being really proud of the city and its history.
Yeah, I used to call it civic arrogance. And when I say that, I mean it as a genuine compliment. Like in other cities, not every city, but a lot of other cities, and certainly a lot I've lived in, like people are kind of down on the city. Like they're proud to be from there, but it's always with a caveat or they'll dog on it among their friends. Pittsburghers don't do that. Like by and large as a culture, like they are very, very proud to be from Pittsburgh, and screw you if you're not.
I love that. I love that evaluation as someone who hasn't lived somewhere else. That's really cool to know.
There's also a lot to be proud of here. Like, we have been a hotspot for a lot of really cool inventions.
That's true. We have a lot of historical stories in our archives on our website, like the first emergency medicine service, which was developed by Black men in the Hill District called the Freedom House Ambulance. I was really excited, guys, when I watched The Pit. They actually gave a call out to Freedom
cool.
House. So I love that.
Yeah, actually, just to pick on the medical first here, like development of the polio vaccine and like all the first mass inoculations, the first successful liver transplant.
Yep.
Like we really did revolutionize all these pockets of medical history. And it's really, really cool how it's touched the whole world. By the way, you can check a ton of this out and more at the Heinz History Center. They have a whole exhibit on our sense of innovation. It really is one of my favorites.
Yeah, and that History Center keeps winning awards. So I guess Pittsburghers love it. People outside of Pittsburgh love it.
Yeah, don't just take our word for it.
Absolutely. Since we were talking inventions here, I want to bring up a really fun one, the banana split, because, I love a little treat.
Invented in Latrobe, very close to Pittsburgh.
Which I guess that's another Pittsburgh rule is like some Pittsburghers will refuse to acknowledge that places outside of Pittsburgh count.
But, the inventor also went to the University of Pittsburgh. So, Latrobe and Pittsburgh can share the ice cream.
And also, Latrobe is the home of Mr. Rogers. So,
What's more Pittsburgh than that?
Yep. Western Pennsylvania love all around.
And since we're all shouting out inventions or firsts, one of the ones I love is that Pittsburgh had the very first commercial radio station in the U.S. So shout out to KDKA, which went on the air in 1920. And I feel like that just kind of was the beginning of our really important place in broadcast history, with things like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood as well.
And of course, we have all of that steelworker history. You can find a ton more on that on our website.
So our next rule, number 9, is about sports because, like it or not, we are a sports city. Even if you are not an avid fan of any of our professional teams, it is helpful to have at least a passing knowledge of our teams just so you can chime in when your friends or family or random people talk to you about it.
Oh, I don't know things about the teams. When people start talking to me about sports, I just tell them which days to get the free merch. We do a lot of giveaways.
That is an important piece of knowledge.
When firework days are. Yeah.
The concerts, other things. There's a lot of fun things that go around our big teams, the Pirates, the Penguins, and the Steelers. One of my favorite fun facts just about the city, kind of writ large, is that we are the only city in the country where our city colors, the black and gold, are also all the colors of our sports teams. All of us share that, and that's really, really fun.
I'll take it one step further. It was also my high school's colors. So I only needed black and gold.
You were set.
You just need one outfit to go to any sports game.
Yep.
And people take that very seriously. You will see a Penguins jersey at a Steelers game. You will see Steelers stuff in Pirates games. As long as you're repping the black and gold, nobody cares what team is on your back.
Yep.
This actually was a thing my partner really noticed and pointed out when he moved here was he was like, I'll meet people who are I can't hang out on Sunday. It's the Steelers game. And they don't strike you as sports people. They were people I never would have profiled as organizing their week around the Steelers game. But it's just such a huge part of the city that even people who, if they were anywhere else, wouldn't tune in at all, it's critical to them. I can't say it's critical to me, but I still try to have enough knowledge to be able to converse with my fellow citizens, my fellow Pittsburghers.
You know what is critical, though? The snack table. And everyone is there for the snacks.
And that's kind of the ethos that we try to bring to this show, too. We want to give you the need to knows, the weird stuff, just so you can remain conversational among the greater Pittsburgh area.
Totally. And the most important thing I learned from you, Megan, is you do need to pay attention to when the Steelers are playing because, Mallory, even if you aren't super into watching the game, the grocery stores are going to be so empty. So you can really peruse.
My favorite hack, don't tell it to everyone.
And we'll keep our final rule super short, super simple. As Mr. Rogers once said, be a good neighbor.
Yeah. Or put another way, don't be a jagoff.
And one last unofficial rule, take advantage of our cultural institutions. We've got so many. If you need help planning, Mallory will be on at the end for a conversation sponsored by the Pittsburgh Opera. She'll be chatting with Chris Cox, their director of marketing and communications, about a couple upcoming shows.
Hey, I'm Mallory Falk here with Chris Cox, the director of marketing and communications at the Pittsburgh Opera. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Mallory. Thanks for having me.
The Pittsburgh Opera has a show coming up this month, March 22nd to 30th at the Benedum, Madama Butterfly. This is probably one of the most well-known operas of all time, but the version that the Pittsburgh audience is going to see, it's a little different than usual. So tell me what makes this specific production so special.
Sure. Well, Madama Butterfly was initially set in the early 1900s Japan. It was written over 100 years ago. It was written by white European males who had never actually been to Japan. Their interpretation, their conception of what Japan was like wasn't entirely accurate even back then, and it's certainly not completely accurate today. Over the decades, despite Madama Butterfly's popularity, there have been concerns about cultural appropriation, yellowface, exoticism, those kinds of things. So the creative team for this particular production, they are all either Japanese or Japanese American. They had to wrap their heads around, okay, how do we tell this story, create a framework for this that feels true to us, and our lived experience, while also maintaining what everyone likes about the show. They came up with a really clever solution, and I don't want to completely spoil, it all. I want to leave some surprises for the audience, but it involves virtual reality and immersive video gaming to create an environment where Puccini's original, conception has a home within a broader contemporary setting.
Yeah, I don't normally associate gaming with the opera, so I'm very intrigued to see how those two things combine.
Oh, 100%.
So then later in the season, you also have a show called Woman with Eyes Closed. This will be from April 26th to May 4th at the Pittsburgh Opera Building in the Strip District. And I know it's actually the world premiere of this show. So what is the story behind this opera, and what can audiences expect from this performance?
Yeah, so Woman with Eyes Closed is inspired by a real-life art heist that actually happened over in Rotterdam. In the story of the opera, a woman, Mona, she discovers that her adult son, with whom she's had a fraught relationship, shall we say, she discovers her son is the thief. So the cops are sniffing around, and she has to decide what to do. And one of the cool things about this opera is we actually have 3 different endings for the show, reflecting 3 different choices that she could potentially make. So if you come opening night, you'll see a different version of events than if you come into the Tuesday show or the Friday show, etc. So it's really a neat little twist and a neat little hook for us.
It's kind of like Choose Your Own Adventure meets opera.
Yeah, or the movie Clue, if you remember that, back when, and I'm sort of dating myself that way. But
I remember it.
Yeah, it was a good one.
It's a great one, yeah. I mean, thinking about it, you kind of have these 2 very different operas coming up. One is this classic, although with a new twist. And then the other is this brand new show having its world premiere. So how do you think, these 2 different shows highlight the range of what the opera and the Pittsburgh Opera can be?
Opera is fundamentally storytelling through song. And there are a lot of different ways that you can do that, right? Just there's a lot of different stories you can tell. So these 2 shows, they're not just different in terms of when they were created, an old one versus a new one, but also in sort of their size and scope. Like Madama Butterfly is this massive spectacle, and it really needs a big stage in a big venue like the Benedum Center, that can seat 2,800 people to really bring it to life. Woman with Eyes Closed is a much more intimate show. It's much more personal in scope. Our theater here holds just under 200 people, right? Like you can sit in the very back row and you're still going to be really close to the performers. And that intimacy gives you a very sort of visceral, personal experience that, from the audience perspective will seem different than the massive Madama Butterfly. But in each case, it's still storytelling through song.
And I know a lot of people have never actually been to the opera, but some of them might be listening right now and are really intrigued by the sound of these shows and want to check it out. So do you have any specific tips for first-timers?
The first thing I would say is wear whatever you want. Right? We do not have a dress code. If you want to get dressed up and make this part of like a fancy night out on the town, great. 100% go for it. A lot of people enjoy that very much, and to them, it's part of the experience. Other folks, it's not really their style. They just want to roll in a pair of jeans, and a hoodie. That's totally, totally fine too, right? We have no dress code at all. Secondly, you don't need to have a PhD to understand what's going on. We have super titles in English projected above the stage, so it basically looks like you're watching television with the captions on. And the music and the singing and the acting, like that really helps tell the story anyway. So, it's pretty obvious, even if you're not paying attention to the super titles, whether the characters are angry or sad or happy or so forth. The last thing I would say is if you want to read the synopsis ahead of time, some people are like, I better make sure I'm ready for what's going to happen in the story. Great, go ahead. That's why we have it printed in the program books. But just realize that the synopsis says the ending.
Chris Cox, thank you again for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
And again, you can check out pittsburghopera.org to learn more. We will have that link in our show notes, so you are just a click away from seeing a new show.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you want to know more about our essential rules to Pittsburgh, check out that link in our show notes. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Talk to you soon.
I grew up swimming in the Allegheny River. That's gross.